So I will sort of get started straight away. I think we've got quite a few people on this call already, so that's fantastic. Thank you for everybody for joining us tonight. It's quite exciting. The case study project is now live. So that means that you are able to submit through the website as of Monday last week. So hopefully that's meant that a lot of the people on tonight's call have sort of been thinking, oh, well, what sort of cases do I have that I could put together for this case study project? Tonight, we're just going to go through a lot of the case report guide, and we'll sort of have time for people to ask some questions. And we're just going to introduce Claire as well, because this is the first time that everyone's seen your face, Claire. Tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you end up working with ASRF and writing case studies?
Okay, right. So I actually I ghost wrote a book for a chiropractor. And I was a chiropractic skeptic at the time and ended up writing a book for a chiropractor. And yeah, that kind of was my conversion moment, my road to Damascus. And I ended up the chiropractor in question, it was Wayne Todd, secretly, guys, the sympathetic dominance book, SD Protocol. So I helped him with that, and he was presenting it to ASRF, and at the time they were looking for a blogger. But that was like 8 years ago, 9 years ago now, and since that time, ASRF has gone from just wanting a blogger who did one lifestyle piece per year and per week and one chiropractic piece per week to focusing solely on chiropractic and subluxation based writing. And then it kind of grew to being the blog and members videos where I interview researchers like Heidi Horvick and Kelly Holt and other chiropractic philosophy movers and shakers, that kind of stuff. And then it was in the last kind of 2 years, we've expanded out to the podcast, and creating member resources, putting together books, and case reports was the next kind of step. And it was sort of deeply satisfying because a lot of people said this project's not going to work. You won't be able to get chiropractors to write case reports. They're too busy, they're too time poor. And we were like, okay, we can find a way around that. So my assistant, Ruth Postlethwaite, she's a biomedical science, that's her background. So she and I teamed up with Professor Philip Ibril from the Asia Pacific Journal. And I think we're at 70 case reports have gone through in the last 3 years. We'll be adding obviously yours and another batch of ASRFs in the next 12 months, which will bump us well past the 120 mark, which now gives us an exciting opportunity to be able to go back and look at trends in the case report data that's coming through, kind of group things together and go, hey, why don't we look at this or why don't we look at that? I also find it's a fantastic way to respond to political upheaval, as we have with pediatrics. The first year that we did the case report, which was project, which was 21 and 22, there was a whole storm in a teacup over the Safer Care Victoria review. And out of the 35 case reports that came through, I think 24 of them were pediatric related. And so, yeah, so that's been fun, because, you can't argue with evidence. People say that case reports are lower evidence, but I think that we ought to turn the decision tree or the hierarchy of evidence on its side and go, it's a decision tree rather than a high to low. Chiropractic doesn't treat a symptom, it cares for the nervous system, and the nervous system does the rest. So different paradigm. Case reports allow us to look at the whole system and the whole scenario and give really clinically relevant information to chiros. So that's kind of where how I ended up here. I do have a handful of staff. I have a business degree, a comms degree, and I'm halfway through a psychology degree, which, let's be honest, I'll probably never finish, but looks nice on my bio.
So, for us, for ABCA anyway, like we formed a research committee and we were discussing like our sort of way forward. Research is something that's very important for ABC to grow.
Yeah.
So case studies was identified as the start point, and definitely a start point that is going to show the awesome stuff that's happening within ABC practices around Australia
Yeah.
and further out in international as well. And you know, from your experience, what makes a good case study?
Yeah, sure. I think case study at its heart, it's story. It's taking the clinical story, but broadening out the story as well. So I always think that I know that the first thing that you need in a good case study is pre and post measures, objective and subjective. So if you've got someone coming in for their initial evaluation, or you've got somebody who you've been working with for a long time, you redo an evaluation, redo their postural analysis or any other measures that you've got. Now, I haven't worked with ABCA specifically for a while, so I'm not across the different tests that you do and the different analyses that you do, but other techniques have used things like postural analysis, subluxation findings, motion palpation, static palpation, those types of things. Others use thermography, surface EMG, heart rate variability. Even overseas in the Averio clinic, they take details like micronutrients and blood panels. So they really go to the extreme end. But the more pre-post measures you have, the better. Now, some people, like JC Prima and the Well Kids crew, they had a questionnaire that includes everything. Now they're pediatrics, so they're looking at things like, birth and pregnancy, and they get details on that. They get details on, primitive reflexes. They also get details on bowel movements and various different things. Like, it's so detailed. So when you compare that at the end, you've got a whole lot of data to go, well, this is significantly improved. This is significantly improved. That stayed the same. There were no adverse effects, that sort of thing. So the more pre-post measures you have, the better. I think it's kind of nice though, because it gives you an impetus to take strong clinical notes, which you're already doing, for APRA's sake, but this gives a higher purpose to the note taking.
So pre
Yeah.
and post measures, yeah, that makes
Yeah.
sense. Say you got crappy notes, right? But you've had this amazing case. Is
Yeah.
it still possible to write a case study with that case going back? Can you go back to the patient and sort of get sort of other sort of subjective measures and just write that up?
I think you could, it's better with the objective measures.
Yep.
That's what really makes it pop. But a lot of the time you'll be able to, like, if it's happened in the last couple of years, you'll be able to go back and go, yeah, I remember. Like, just even take your crappy notes and just revisit them and see what comes to mind and what you can reconstruct from memory. But yeah, you can absolutely ask the patient for their memory on it. Now, the thing is with subjective measures, they really add to the picture, but the clinical picture is what makes it shine. With that said, and hi, Bo, I've sort of seen you pop into the chat there. So he's our other resident. He's written before, so I welcome your input on this. The clinical stuff is really what makes it pop. It's what makes other chiropractors go, oh, this technique's got something good here, or maybe I need to look into this. But it also gives them an idea of how to manage someone with a similar presentation in their practice. The subjective stuff is the story, and that's what makes it sexy, like that's what makes it it kind of makes the patient feel like they're part of the process as well. Like, there was one, I think it was Liz Ehrman in the first year. She had a patient who had it's not ALS, motor neuron disease, isn't it? Is that the one? The ice bucket challenge one. Yeah, so I think he had Lou Gehrig's disease. And it would take his life in the end, and he did reach the end of his journey with it. But he was so keen on telling the story of how this had extended his life, of how it had slowed the progression to the point that even his other care therapists had gone, wow, you should have gone downhill a lot faster. What have you been doing? And they noticed that when he went away from care, they'd be able to bring him up to where he was before, but not quite. And so he had a couple of weeks. So these elements of story are really important. And he was so passionate about leaving a legacy where people could see that chiropractic had made a difference in literally adding years to his life. So that's a really important aspect of story. And I find that people generally do like to throw their 2 cents in. And yeah, and I mean, the other thing that I think is really important is to ask the questions to get the full picture, because often there's a lot that patients aren't quite telling us. I mean, you know this better than me because you're actually a chiropractor and I'm not, but you know, maybe they're not, maybe you haven't taken a thorough history in a while, and there's been some things going on in their life or their health that they haven't quite disclosed, like taking a pause to really dig into that and see what's going on for them so you can get the full picture. Because so many of our case reports start with they presented for back and neck pain, but it turns out they have infertility issues, or they have, you know, insomnia, migraines, vestibular dysfunction, ligament instability, blah, 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 blah.
Yes.
So, yeah.
And like, I kind of agree. Chiros typically are good at getting quite a good case history, but they're pretty shit at finding out whether or not what impact the chiropractic has had on their life, because we're kind of always like, oh, exam, this, doing this, objective findings, you know, but then, you never ask a patient for a testimonial typically within a normal sort of private practice environment.
No, but people, when they are given the opportunity to say, hey, has this made a difference to you? You could be surprised at what they say. So
I think you often are.
yes. Yeah. So I will, this absolutely tickled me. When one of our case reports came through, it was an open plan office that this guy was at, and his particular complaint was lower back pain. But one of the one of the novel side effects was his erectile dysfunction resolved. You have never met a more enthusiastic chiropractic patient who did have to be told to use his inside voice a few times while bragging about the difference it had made to his life. So, you know, choose your moment, but you know, definitely ask the practice member what difference it's made.
Yeah, sure. So basically, when I was reading the guide, that's something you sort of point out in the guide. It's still available on the website. We're going to make it a little bit easy to access the guide for everyone when you go to the ABCA website, but it's still there. It's like, Catherine, can you just say the
Yeah, so it's there now. So it's just go to our website, abcaustralasia.org.au/ASRF. And I've popped the guide there and a little bit of info on the project there as well. And anything that new that comes to light, anything that Claire feeds through to us and through to me, any new information or whatever we need, we'll go into that just /ASRF link on our website.
Yep. Cool. All right. Is there any chance that the Asia Pacific Journal will get listed on Google Scholar? Yes, we're working on it. Well, they're working on it. So that will happen in due course.
So I was just going to continue on, like with the guide, it kind of mentions that, you know, we're looking for cases that sort of go beyond the relief of back and neck pain, because there's a lot of literature there already. With the postural findings, I'm sort of thinking that if we want to show off the postural stuff that happens within ABC, is it best just to have images, or?
We love images. We love them. So that is,
I guess for ABC people, it's just about sort of including those with the submissions.
So what will happen, the initial submission is what goes to our research panel. So they're looking through that to go, yeah, is this chunky enough? Do we have enough information? Is this going to contribute to the literature in a meaningful way? That's not the place to submit your thermal scans or your x-rays or anything like that. Ruth and I will follow up with the successful applicants. You know, because what happens is we get all your stuff, it goes to the clinical advisory panel, which we've got one that we've specially put together for you guys. They'll basically go, yep, this is cool. This one's a little thin. This one doesn't sound very chiropractic or whatever. And then they'll give us a list of the ones that they believe are best for publication at the end. Ruth and I then get that and we sort it all out. We're likely to sort it into clusters of similar symptomatology, not because chiropractors, you know, treat symptoms directly, but because it's easier to theme them out and go, there's a chunk of, you know, things that's about vestibular function or gut function or, you know, whatever. We often see trends. So we'll then group them out and plan how they'll be released over the course of a year with the Asia Pacific Journal. We are also we're creating connections with other journals as well, but that's the one that we're in partnership with primarily at the moment. So once we start kind of collating and writing up, my favorite bit is when you get to the end and you actually get to do the discussion section and you get to do the introduction, because that's when you can really build out a narrative about, you know, the introduction is about what are the key issues in this paper? What has chiropractic literature said before about this? What does basic science say about this? Then we launch into the case report and we can really build a case for how this adds to that knowledge or makes sense because of that knowledge. But then the discussion section is where you can take the conversation forward. What are the mechanisms that you see as a chiropractor that might be at play here? What do you think are the relevant, relevant pieces of background information? That's not work that most chiropractors have time to do, but it is work that my team and I love getting into. But what you can do to help us with that is give us some dot points on what you think the discussion points should be. And then we can build out a nice, strong discussion section for you, flick it back once the draft is done, and you might go, okay, I've got these comments to make in the opening and maybe change that. I hate that, or I love this, or this is what my patient has had to say since, this is what I'm observing. And we bounce it back and forward that way until we've got a nice looking paper, and we submit all your images that or, you know, clinical scans or whatever you do, and then they all go through to the journal at the same time, which on this particular day is 6 days away. I'm fine.
Awesome. So I think there's a lot that might be coming up just for individuals trying to put together their own case study. So what I want to do at this point, unless there's anything else you want to add, is sort of just ask if there's any questions from the people that are on the call tonight. So if you've got a question, just I guess there's like a little hands up button on this one. No, there's not. Maybe just unmute yourself and see if you can just ask Claire while we've got her on the call.
Nobody likes crickets, so definitely
there's no silly questions either. That's why I tried to throw a few in straight away.
Yeah.
I have one.
Oh, lovely.
Hello.
Fabulous.
What if you've already kind of written it as a case study?
Then you might not need my help.
Okay.
So, yeah, I mean, if you've got something already, flick it through, and I think we may not need to run it through CAP. You may be able to submit it directly. I'll be able to give you a bit of insight on perhaps what you need to expand, or you know, what you might get caught up on in peer review. But yeah, if you've already written it up, then great. If you've written it up and you feel like it's not as strong as it could be, we can work on that too. I think when Ryan Seaman, the president of ASRF, when he and I first worked with Josh first met with Josh, Josh asked me what my job description was, and I said enabler. So I'm not really fussed.
Chiropractors need these people. Very important, Claire.
Yeah.
And shall I just forward the drafts over to your email address that's on the guide then?
Yeah. Did I put, Claire at claremcivor.com is my email address. So, you can actually, I'll pop that in the chat. Now, guys, my name gets spelt wrong all the time. So I'll make sure I spell it properly, but make sure you don't add in any I's to Claire or spell me like MacGyver, because I am no superhero. So, yeah.
Perfect. Thank you very much. I'll send that over to you.
Exciting. Can't wait to see it. All right. Who else? Was there somebody who had a question before and chickened out?
Just kind of circling back to Josh's comments, I think, chiropractors are traditionally pretty paranoid about the quality of their note taking, and I think that's one of the things that holds them back. So there is a scope for us to be able to go back retrospectively and interview and document the patient at a later date for their recollection, and that will add to the to the evidence base and the strength of that particular case.
Absolutely. Now, I have seen some notes. This is before we got you to type it into a web form. I saw some notes where the handwriting was like, oh lordy, that's going to be fun for me. I have gotten quite good at interpreting chiropractors' handwriting, but sometimes I have a little trouble with the acronyms if they're unique to your technique. Like if I see, C1 to C5, that's great. I know what that is. If I say CX, I'm going to assume you mean the full cervical spine. But when in doubt, fill it out kind of thing, and you know what your acronyms are. But, at the end of the day, I'll be drafting you a document that you get to look at and make comments on. And if I've stuffed it up, you can correct it there. It is definitely better if you've got a bit of a fresh memory on, if you've got a bit of memory on the objective stuff, the patient will have some memories of their own about the subjective stuff. So absolutely. Yeah.
Cool.
And
would given that the ABC is a fairly protocol based, like standardized technique, that if we're all following the steps that we should be following, the outcomes should be pretty consistent. So would it be helpful for you to have some kind of what's the word I'm looking for, like some kind of shorthand to kind of understand?
Tell you what.
I think our note taking in terms of what we're adjusting on any particular visit would be pretty standard across the board. Would that be kind of fair enough if we had like?
Yeah. Have you got an ABC Chiro in Melbourne?
In Melbourne.
Do we have ABC Chiros in Melbourne, Sam?
No.
So maybe the easiest thing.
That's me.
Oh, that's you. Well, why don't I come and see you? You can adjust me and talk me through it. And
you should definitely get adjusted.
Yeah, and
Do it.
Especially after I don't know if you haven't really shared, but Claire had an epic fall.
I
damn near killed herself.
So behind me here is the fridge and the bench. And I got up on the bench to I got up on a stool to get migraine tablets out of the cupboard above the fridge. Little did I know that the stool only had 3 functional legs. So the leg has exploded off. I've fallen and cracked my left occiput on the bench on the way down. I'm not sure whether I knocked myself out or knocked myself stupid, but when I came to, I've thrown up and then my cranium has gone, like it felt like it went and then back together again. So I'm on the back of a mild brain injury. And my chiropractor's, had me in twice a week, and she's been doing cranials and all sorts of stuff. But photobiomodulation to get things firing again. And
things might be needed, I think.
Yeah, so I'll come see you, Sam, and you can just adjust me, and I'll learn the protocol that way. So how about that? This sounds fun, and we'll get to meet in person.
Look forward to it. Let's sort that out ASAP.
Fabulous. But yeah, good point there, James. I think the best way to learn is always immersion. So yeah. All right. Any other questions?
Floor's open. Any more questions?
I have a question around, so I know we've got 20, like we're aiming for 20 through ABC to be presented to the ASRF. Does that go through ABCA first for selection and then we send them to ASRF, or are they going directly to ASRF?
They'll go directly to ASRF. We've just already got the scaffolding for it there on the website, so that's nice and easy, but we'll definitely be looping you guys in as those submissions come through. So, because basically, the submissions come in to myself and a couple of other people, and then we collate them all and send them across to CAP in one big lot. So, sorry, clinical advisory panel in one big lot. There I go with the acronyms. See my point. Yeah, but we'll definitely be looping probably Josh maybe into that, so I can keep you informed of how many have come through and what kind, and then we go from there.
So, Claire, just to circle back to my question about the interviewing patients later on.
Yep.
Like a video interview, would that be a valid way of going about that, rather than trying to write down notes, or maybe a video interview that was then transcribed?
I think
what would be the best way of going about that?
Definitely written is what we'd need. We can't use video, obviously, for identification purposes, but you can use audio and then get it transcribed, or you can send me the audio file and I can play it into my podcasting software because it transcribes it automatically, and then just delete the audio. So however is easiest for you. But yeah, we can't use video. I'd be looking for something written. So if you can get it transcribed, great. The other thing is that you could do a form and they could write their thoughts in, whatever you feel is best for your people. You do have the release forms there as well in the pack, so they know that they'll be de-identified to the greatest possibility. Like, obviously, and what I mean by that is Mr. Motor Neurone Disease, like, he could be de-identified, but it said that he was a football player who had played pro rugby for Queensland and then been diagnosed with motor neurone disease. Now, I wanted to take all that data out, and the patient was really keen on it remaining in, so people knew that he was an elite athlete. But if you went and Googled Queensland rugby players who were diagnosed with motor neurone disease, you'd find out who he is. So we de-identify people to our greatest ability. Make sure there's no names, everything's been blanked off the scans, all of that sort of stuff. So
yeah, and if it's a pediatric case, then interview notes from the parents.
Yeah,
would be
100%
fine as well. Yep.
Yeah. Mothers tend to remember things. So yeah. All righty.
All right, that might be it. Is there any more questions?
Now,
okay.
you've probably had a couple of cases pop into your mind as a possibility. My encouragement is don't overthink it. They're probably the ones. So, we can often go, oh, maybe this one, and then second guess ourselves. And I don't know, maybe it's just me being type A and quite gifted in the area of overthinking. But yeah, I usually encourage people to go on first impressions. If there's somebody who's come into your clinic and blown your mind with their, before and afters, then it's probably the one.
And it's sometimes like just not underestimating like the stuff that's happening within your practice. Like, I think you get a bit blasé about it, so that the cases are there. It's just that we kind of forget about them. So we're like, oh yeah, I remember that guy.
Yeah.
That, and it's like, just find that case, and or it might even be that you review someone's progress this week and you remember, oh yeah, that was quite remarkable, that initial few months of care. Yeah, I remember.
Yeah.
And then because they've been seeing you ever since, you sort of forget.
Yeah. The magic that happened in the beginning.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a relationship, isn't it? Oh dear.
Oh, honeymoons. All right. Okay, so
Yeah,
thank you so much for your time tonight, Claire. We're
Pleasure.
gonna just put this recording up so the other people that weren't able to make tonight can sort of go through and feel more comfortable submitting. But look forward to seeing lots of submissions from this group, and look forward to seeing some publications in the next 12 months. Very exciting times.
Very exciting times. It's a pleasure to work with you. All right.
Thanks,
See you on the
Claire. Good
flip
night.
side. I'll chat to you, Sam.
Thanks, Claire. Thanks, Josh. Fantastic.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks,
Right,
Claire.
thanks, guys.
That's Claire.